DCU, all new, all different Marvel. Same old gimmicks, same old concepts, and the same old editorial teams telling us that nothing will ever be the same again, when it is always pretty much the exact same thing, over and over and over again. A lot of people, comic fans, get really upset about, the end of the Marvel Universe just recently, and everything just starting all over again. Just like a lot of comic fans in 2011 were upset about the end of the DC Universe with the New 52. Now, a lot of fans have complained and they're really upset about it and have been frustrated. And, they're sitting there waiting for things to change. Um, yes, I love the old DC Universe. I love the old Marvel Universe. And while I would love to see those characters come back so that I could share them with kids of the next generation or even write those comics for the next generation, I'm a realist and I understand that, it's Time Warner's business, it's Disney's business, and if they don't want to change their characters, then that's on them. I can always go back to my old comics or the reprints, and I can just move on. And I'm urging a lot of comic fans, at the end of the day, they're their characters, but more importantly, these are your dollars. And if you see a product you don't like, then don't buy it. It's just as simple as that. I mean, yes, I am in many of the Facebook groups, and I do blogs, talking about about the impact of these changes in the comic book industry. But when it comes down to my dollars, I just don't spend them, with Marvel and DC. The big two are not all comics in my eyes, and superhero comics are not the only genre in my eyes. I mean, I remember about a week ago, I was with my sister at the Barnes and Noble, and I saw a great little trilogy of graphic novels from Scholastic called Smile, Sisters, and Drama. And I was flipping through them, and I saw these three comics, and they were just great comics. I mean, they weren't superheroes, but the story was very compelling, and and it was just great reading. And I would really recommend Smile, Sisters, and Drama, all three of those graphic novels, to anybody with kids. I think any kid will enjoy those three graphic novels. And you have to realize that there is more to comics than superheroes, than Marvel and DC. There are a lot of other great comics out there. I mean, there's web comics out there, like Something Positive from Randy Milholland, Bill Walko's The Hero Business, and Jeff Jock's Questionable Content. Just a lot of they're making great comics every day and every week, and even some of the regular newspaper strips like Luann from Greg Evans has been spectacular for the last 10 years now. And another strip I can really recommend is, Archie has been pretty much been doing some really dynamic work. I mean, I look at some of the newer stuff like Robert Hack's Sabrina, many of the other titles at Archie. They're just it's not just Marvel and DC, and I feel like comic fans, you know, are really boxing themselves in and missing out on a lot of great content that is out there right now. And in the indies, IDW and all these other companies are producing some very, very amazing comics right now. Very, very, and Image Comics, who, 20 years ago everybody hated because everything was, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and Tom McFarlane, now have really found the creative stride and are producing some of the best comics in the business. So instead of everybody, getting upset about Marvel and DC, I really feel that, you have the power of the dollar is in your hands, and if you really like good comics, then head over to one of these indies, head over to some of these web comics, or even branch out and head over to my SJS Direct imprint. I mean, this month I just released two new books in my ISIS as part of an ISIS East Team crossover, ISIS Night of the Vampires and East Team Undercover. These two new paperbacks have all the action and adventure of a comic book. And if you're a Wonder Woman fan or you're a fan of superheroines, you'll really enjoy stories in the ISIS series. Same thing with ISIS Wrath of the Cyber Goddess here. Another great cover by Bill Walko. These two covers were also done by hero business artist Bill Walko. And all these adventures I write are just like superhero comics. They have the same plots, same plot structures, same story structures, and it's fast-paced action adventure, and it features a strong, positive heroine. There's none of this stuff that everybody's been complaining about. A lot of comic fans complain about all the violence and all the gore, and plots that go on and on and on and on. But in the SJS Direct imprint, just like a lot of the indie comics, my stories all have start and finish in one volume. And yes, they're serialized, but they all, again, and finish in one volume with its own beginning, middle, and end. And and what I really want to, persuade comic fans to do, is um, start branching out of Marvel and DC. They aren't, again, the end all, the be all. If they're not producing the type of comics that you like, then it's time to take your money and spend it elsewhere. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your dollar, and your dollar, you know, is what every customer wants to get. And if the business doesn't want your dollars, eventually they're just going to either go out of business, or in the case of Marvel or DC, upper management is going to have a little talk with the editors in chief there, and somebody's going to be terminated, because at the end of the day, it's all about profits. If it's all about profits for them, and they see that you're not spending any money, you know, they're going to have to change their model and their business model and their business approaches. Because the way I look at it now, everybody, what they do is they go and complain on a message board, or they go to a Facebook group and complain, but that doesn't really solve the problem. The only way to get change is to just stop spending your money with them, or better yet, stop wasting your time complaining about it. Because what's going to happen at the end of the day is, this is Warner Brothers property and Disney's property, but again, the money is yours, and if as long as the money is in your hands, you have a right to spend it any way you please. And if a product is not to your liking, you can just take your money and go to a competitor like one of the indies I just mentioned, or even to myself, and spend that money with one of us. Because I know a lot of indie artists, this is pretty much how they make their money, and they would really appreciate, having you spend money with them and sharing their characters with other readers, and giving and supporting our products. I mean, indie comic writers and indie publishers like myself, we really want your money, and we really want your support. And there's just too much good stuff out here to be sitting around waiting for Marvel and DC to get it. At the end of the day, they don't want to get it, then then you can take your money to a competitor. That's just the way America works. I mean, in America, if somebody is not producing what you want, you can go to a competitor and go get a product that you find satisfying. And a lot of comic fans instead are just sitting here, waiting for DC to change back, or waiting for Marvel to change back. Well, I say don't wait for them to change back. Your time is too precious to waste on people who don't want to give you products that you want. If they don't want to give you what you want, then you can just go to a competitor. I mean, I can give you other examples in my own personal life. I haven't been to a McDonald's in over a year, and the reason why is because I find the food to be just garbage. And I go and I say, look, I don't like McDonald's food. The restaurant service is too slow. You know what? I'm gonna go head over to a local pizza place, or a local Chinese restaurant, or a local Jamaican beef patty place, or wherever. Or I'm just gonna go get myself, and I'm gonna go buy their food because I like the way their food tastes. Or since I'm a guy who knows how to cook, I go out and I'll go make food that I like. I mean, I don't sit there and say, keep going to McDonald's every week and then saying that the food stinks and continue to go there. And the same thing with comic fans. You just can't sit there and continue to keep going back to publishers who produce comics you just don't like. If I don't like the product, then I go find another product that I like. I mean, at the end of the day, it's my money, and I will. And if I choose to spend it with you, then you have to show me that it's worth it. The thing is that I look at a lot of these indie publishers, and these guys are trying to earn your money, and they're trying to build their brand, just like I'm trying to do with my own SJS Direct imprint. I'm trying to build a brand, and I'm trying to get new readers, and I'm trying to get people to understand why complain about one product that is not going to change when you can go out and go try some other products. I mean, what's the cost of buying one of these paperbacks? Both these paperbacks are about $10.99 on Amazon. That's less than 2 comics or a graphic novel. Both of these books are 120. This one, Isis Night of the Vampires, is 137 pages. Well, it's 124 pages of story, so that's literally 4 comic books, and East Team Undercover is 119 pages of story, and that's about 4 comic books. Four comic books worth. So you're basically getting like 8 comics in one story. I mean, and basically when I do stories that have a beginning and a middle and an end, they're almost like a 3-issue story arc. So you're getting a lot of story for the same price, and it's just almost about the same price of a good trade if you can find it, in a discount store. So what's that? And if you're buying books on Kindle Fire or Kindle, both of these books are just like 99 cents. So what's 99 cents if you're going to just give something a try? I mean, and with a lot of the web comics like Hero Business and Something Positive, those strips are free. And what is it? 5 seconds of your day? That's nothing to lose in giving something a try. I mean, comic fans, I know that they're very rigid and stuck in their whole Marvel and DC thing, but sometimes the indies have a lot to offer you, and it's just a little bit of money or a little bit of time. I mean, and branching out could be the best thing you ever did, because then you find, there's a whole lot of great stories out there and a whole lot of great new characters out there for you to get to know and become a fan of. There's just a lot of great material out there. And when I look at the whole Marvel and DC thing, I mean, if they want to reboot their universe and make a complete mess of it, I'm not going to sit here and wait for them to change it back. I mean, I look at the whole spectrum of comics, and there's just too much good material for me to miss. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, and I missed a lot of great indie comics back then, like E-Man and American Flag and, Femforce. And I'm just discovering a lot of these great books, 30 years later, because I started saying, because even then, I was buying Fantagraphics at the time, but there was just, again, so much great stuff out there, and I missed out on it. And now I'm rediscovering it. And there's just too much good stuff out here, to sit there and say, I'm going to sit here and wait for DC to rebuild and bring its universe back, or, give me products that I want before, when there's just, again, too much good stuff out here, waiting, and too many writers like myself who are waiting to be discovered, and too many other great writers and artists who are waiting out here to be discovered, to sit here and say, what, the DC universe, and the Marvel universe, they want to go in this new direction. Well, guess what? You as a comic fan can go in a new direction as well. And there's nothing bad about that. It's the best thing you could ever do, because it shows that you're growing. You're trying doing different things, and that's part of life. I mean, if a company is not producing a product that you like, you can always go to another company and buy other products. And I look at it that way, and I really want other comic fans to look at it that way, because you know, again, life is too short to sit there and wait for Superman to put his red trunks back on in the old DC universe to come back. If it doesn't want to come, if Time Warner doesn't want to bring it back, then you can just go someplace else and go take your comic dollars, which are more valuable, and your time, which is the most valuable thing, and share it with people who want to, provide you and your family with, the type of entertainment that you want. Um, I look at it. That's my perception of it, because I've written several blogs. I mean, dozens of blogs talking about the dysfunction at DC and the dysfunction at Marvel, and I'm not at this point now. I'm not expecting anything to change with your post convergence or your end of the Marvel universe. I'm just like this. I'm saying that I've been in on the boards. I've looked in some comic shops, and I've even been in the library, and I just see too much great material, being overlooked by comic fans who are still stuck on the big two, when, the indies are really producing some of the best work I have seen since the mid 1980s. And I really hope that people don't miss out on all that great work. I mean, there were just so many great comics that I regret missing then that I'm picking up now. And I feel that now it's a perfect opportunity for your comic fans, to pick up some of these other strips or even fantasy fiction like I write, because I always wanted to get into comics, but I can't draw a lick, so I just make pictures with my words. So I really feel that this is a perfect time for people to jump on to new products and make new characters into the next set of icons. That's what your kids are doing right now with Monster High and Harry Potter and characters like that. They're making them into their icons, and yeah, they may watch superhero movies, but I look at right now what happened with Monster High. Monster High is now bigger than Barbie, um, and Barbie's becoming on the toy store shelves. She's becoming forgotten, and that's all because people grow up. They say that they can't. If the kids say they can't get into this, they'll go get into this. And what they got into was Monster High. They got into Disney princesses, and that's their stuff. And the whole thing is that that's what comic fans can do. You can just go find some other characters to get into, and you know, if this character is not doing, if their writers aren't doing what you think is right with this character, you can go find another character to get into. And I say that to Wonder Woman fans all the time. If you don't like the way Wonder Woman is going, you can go pick up an Isis book, like this one, like Isis Wrath of the Cyber Goddess, and you get into this. It's just like a Wonder Woman story in many ways. The character almost has the same policy. She doesn't kill people, and she tries to solve problems through reasoning and diplomacy. So why not get into this character? Why not, start reading these adventures instead of sitting there and waiting for this other character to change back to the way it was? I mean, I look at it this way. There's too much good material out here to, still sit there and wait for this company to change. I mean, if Diane Dido wants to make DCU, which is really he wants to make a DC Dido, and Marvel wants to go in an all new, all different direction, which is the exact same direction they've been going in, the same circle they've been going in for the last 30 years. I mean, you can continue to take your dollars to another company, and like a lot of people have done with Image and with other indie companies, and you can enjoy those comics and have fun reading those, and understand that again at the end of the day, it's your dollar, and how you spend it. Um, and how you spend it is the most important thing, and how you spend your time is the most important thing. There's too many great products out there to sit up here and continue to sit there and wait for these guys to change, because if they don't want to change, then that's how it is. I mean, that's a tenet I try to teach in my dating book, Stop Simping. If a woman is or a man is disrespectful and uncooperative and rude, then you can just charge them to the game and keep it moving. And that's what many comic fans need to understand with your DC and your Marvel. It is okay for you to charge them to the game and keep it moving. If they're not going to create the products that you want, then you can go and take your money elsewhere and, just keep walking. I mean, that's something I had to do many years ago when they did this way back in 1994. They went into Marvel and DC went into a bad direction. No, not DC didn't go into Marvel went into a bad direction in 1994, and I decided to leave. And you know what? I came back for about a little moment in 2000, and I saw everything falling apart again. I said I was done, and I didn't feel bad about it. And the same thing with DC in 2011. I decided to walk away. Um, and then I was still buying their action figures, but then I said enough was enough after the second subscription where they were trying to, ram characters into the line and then trying to raise the price on things. I decided, it was just time to move on, and I feel no shame about moving on. I feel if a company is not producing products that I like, then it's all right for me to walk away. And because at the end of the day, it's my dollar, and if you don't want to produce products that I want, I will go out and find a competitor with products that I like, or I'll just keep my money in my pocket and pursue another hobby. It's just as simple as that. And there is no compulsion. I mean, I feel that when DC ended the numbers on the old comics, you know what, I could put a period at the end of it and move on. Um, but it's up to every comic fan to go in their own direction. But this is just how I feel about it. If they want to reboot their universe 100 times, if you're not producing what I want, I'm just going to go find other great products, comic products out there um, that have the stories that I want to read. And there's just too much good stuff out there. Just like the books I recommended, like Smile, Sisters, and Drama. Bill Walko's The Hero Business, which is a great webcomic. Randy Milholland's Something Positive. Jeff Jock's Questionable Content. Greg Evans, Luann. These are some of the comics I read every day when they're up, and or every week when they're up. And there's just too many graphic novels featuring stories I never picked up. You know, like E-Man, great comic. There's just too much good stuff out there for me to sit here and wait for Marvel and DC to get it, and Marvel and DC's editors to get it. I mean, I've always said that the post-Dido regime or the post-Alonso regime um, will have a lot of hard work to do in trying to clean up, you know, the mess that has been made. But whenever that happens, and you know, Marvel and DC decide to create great comics, maybe I'll go back and take a look at some of them. But until then, I'm eager to continue looking at many of the indies and many of the web comics out there, because all these artists do deserve some support from readers, and they deserve a lot more. They deserve support, you know, from readers, and they deserve, you know, people coming out to push and promote their work. I'll even go in and say Archie. Archie Comics is producing some of the best comics to date. I mean, they are on a roll. And same thing with Image. They're on a roll. So go pick up some of those comics. And while you're going to go pick up some of those comics, if you're on Amazon, you can go pick up some of my work, like the ISIS E-Steam crossover, which is in paperback, and on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited. So even if you have Amazon Prime, you can borrow ISIS Night of the Vampires and E-Steam Undercover for free. You can borrow ISIS Wrath of the Cyber Goddess for free. All three of these books feature covers by Hero Business artist Go Walko. He did a great job on all three of them. And you can also pick up the previous book in the ISIS series, ISIS Power of the Princess, on Kindle for free. It's also in paperback. Again, all four of these are in paperback. And you can pick them up on Kindle for free if you have Amazon Prime. You can also pick up ISIS All About the Goddess on Kindle, on paperback and Kindle Unlimited for free. If you buy the paperbacks, they're just the price of about 4 comics. And what's 4 comics for just trying something new? That's all I have to say for this video. Go out and give some of these indie comics a shot. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. And I know that there's more to comics than Marvel and DC, and I'm urging more fans to go and see that. Again, that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.